Hi guys, it's Ouch 110. How's everyone doing? Good, 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 I hope. If you, like me, are bumbling along in your fragrance journey, living your best life, loving life, making new discoveries, you probably have a couple of fragrances that you're very dedicated to, you've worn for many years, and love and cherish like the rest of us. But then, about 4 or 5 years ago, something happened and the fragrance industry got turned on its head. The fragrance industry was running around like headless chickens because new rules came into play, and it was all to do with allergens. There's a couple of bodies of people, there's EU regulations and then there's IFRA, that declared that certain things couldn't be used in fragrance anymore at all, and certain things had to be toned down or used in only certain percentages. Yeah, I've put together a list of 10 reformulations that don't suck. Now I need to make a disclaimer. It's very, very difficult to find a reformulation that is better or as rich or as full-bodied as the original, and some people probably prefer them. I personally don't know. I like fragrances how they were before they were reformulated. There's only very few exceptions to the rule. So before I start, I will say, in my opinion, none of these are better than the original formulations. However, the title of this video explains it all. They don't suck ass. So I've mentioned a couple of these, or nearly all of them, at different times in different places on my channel, but I wanted to put them all together in one place to compartmentalize them and keep it all neat and tidy for you. So let's begin. So the first one on the list is Insolence by Guerlain. I have tried both formulations of this. The original one that comes in the super UFO purple kind of dealio bottle, and the new one that comes in the B bottle. When I tried the B bottle one, I was very, very surprised. Insolence is a very rich violet fragrance, super syrupy, high-pitched, strong, long-lasting thing. And having smelled the new Samsara as well, I thought that Insolence was going to have suffered the same fate. It doesn't. In fact, to me, this is one of the better reformulations. In fact, I could only tell the slightest difference, if none at all. So if you're a fan of Insolence by Guerlain and you have the purple disc bottle, don't be afraid to buy this one because it's still great. The next one on the list is Opium by Yves Saint Laurent. This one's been around for ages, I think since the 70s maybe, 80s possibly. So this is one of the queens of the Oriental fragrances, and I actually own the newer Eau de Parfum. Definitely doesn't suck. In fact, this might be one of the ones that I prefer. The older one, super rich, resinous, myrrh, spices, it's got a lot of stuff going on. Very, very bold Oriental fragrance. And the new one that comes in this bottle with the black tube, and it looks kind of like bamboo, it's great. I mean, it's still one of the strongest things I own, and definitely still worth buying if Opium is your bag. I know it's not to everyone's taste, but I think it's a masterpiece, and they did not F it up when they reformulated it. So Opium by Yves Saint Laurent. The next one is a hugely popular one amongst niche lovers. It's called Portrait of a Lady, and it's by Frederic Malle. This fragrance, oh my gosh, okay, so it's monstrous whichever way you look at it. I think this one's been reformulated 3 times, in fact, which is a real shame because it's like they're reformulating the reformulation, and reformulations are bad because they have to take something out. So it's never going to be what the original was, or they have to replace things and tweak it, and it's just a pain in the bum for everyone involved. But I own the newer formula of Portrait of a Lady, or should I say the middle one, and you know, I think it's great. I know the original one was so monstrous. This one is only slightly tamed down. It still has everything. They didn't replace any notes. I think they just took a few things down a few notches, but it still retains its bombastic rose patchouli, massive incense, can fill a room type fragrance, and I know it's kind of pricey, but I don't think you should be worried if you wanted to buy Portrait of a Lady but you're scared of the reformulation. So that one's just great all round anyway, just yay, big fan right here. The next one is by the same brand, and it's Carnal Flower. I own this one also. I have tried both the original formulas and the new formulas of both Portrait and Carnal Flower. Kind of the same thing, I don't need to say much. They haven't really changed it too much. It's lost a bit of richness, but it's still such a bold fragrance to begin with that they haven't watered it down so much that it's just a meh. it still retains its gorgeous, rich, tuberosy greenness. There's still coconut, it's still multifaceted to me, and it's still very, very strong. And that's one of the things that gets taken away when perfumers reformulate things. Either it compromises longevity, it compromises sillage, it compromises complexity, and both of the two previous ones I've just spoke about, this one and Portrait of a Lady, haven't lost that for me personally. So Carnal Flower by Frederic Malle. The next one's a crowd divider, whichever way you look at it, but I own both the vintage and the new formula, and it's Eden by Cacharel. Love it or hate it, I personally think this fragrance is a masterpiece for its sheer, bold, weird wonderfulness. The original one, yes, this one does actually smell quite different to the original, the new formula one. The original one was way more floral, again, richer, more full-bodied, more intense. The new one is a little bit smoother, it's got a little bit more of a plasticky type feeling, but in terms of strength, it's still really, really strong. So if you're worried about it being changed in terms of the way it smells, this one does actually smell different. It's still recognizable as Eden, but it's like they took out about 4 or 5 flowers, because Eden is a huge bouquet of tropical green weirdness. But I own both of them, and I still really like the new formula too. It does not suck. The next one is by Amouage, and it's called Memoir Woman. Another fragrance. The things that I'm putting on this list are all very bombastic fragrances in their own right anyway, so I guess it would be more difficult to take something away from something that is so bold. Memoir Woman, gosh, I own the new formula of this one. The way you can tell is if it's got a magnetic cap or if it's got a clear plastic cap. This is one of the strongest things I own as well. Constantly gets me noticed when I wear it. It's an incensey chypre. It's a dry green fragrance with loads of smoke. It's one of those ones that if you hug somebody, it rubs off on them, because it's actually happened to me before. And it definitely doesn't suck. I mean, I'm super happy with my bottle. In fact, it's one of the ones where I think the original one might be too intense. So Memoir Woman by Amouage, absolutely fantastic. Newer formula, does not suck. I love it. The next one is by Christian Dior, and it's Addict. I am very familiar with the old formula of it. This was a massive fragrance. I mean, one of the strongest fragrances I think that Dior has ever released, maybe along with Hypnotic Poison and Poison as well. But Dior Addict was a monster, a real big monster, and I have owned the newer formula of Addict. I did actually move it on, not for any bad reason, but I think the new one is, while it's not as rich, it still packs such a massive punch, and it still lasts forever. Dior Addict is great. It's a very woody vanilla, touches on smoky sometimes, and I can smell oranges in there as well. And you know, it's stood the test of time. I think it still sells a lot nowadays, and the reformulation is great. I still really, really like it. I much prefer the original, I will say that, but as the title of this video says, the reformulation does not suck. The next one on the list is the only exception to the rule, where I will say, hand on heart, that the reformulation is miles better than the original. And the reason it's a bit different is because this one wasn't just a reformulation, it was an entire facelift. This fragrance completely changed, for whichever reasons I don't know, but it is Panda by Zoologist. The original fragrance came out, oh gosh, I think it was one of the first 3 that Zoologist released in their inception, and then something happened and they decided to revamp, revitalize, look at it from a different angle, and the new Panda is amazing. So it's a little bit different because it's not just a tweak, it's actually a full-on change. But the original Panda is actually my least favorite fragrance by Zoologist. It was very astringent. I don't know, there was something just odd about it. The new one though is great. It's much brighter, it's much more wearable, it's kind of bamboo and fresh, and there's tea in it as well. It's just really, really nice, and a really unusual citrusiness that comes from Buddha's hand citron. So Panda is the only exception where the reformulation is amazing, and I wanted to put it on the list because, you know, I'm going to talk about Zoologist at some point. The next one is another one by Dior, and it's Pure Poison. The older version of this perfume came with a white lid. The newer formula comes with a purple lid, and I wanted the fragrance when the older formula was available. I ended up getting it when it was the new formula. I was not disappointed at all. Yes, I don't want to be like a broken record. It's not as rich, not as full, not as intense, but I still think the new formula hasn't been changed so much. It still very much smells like Pure Poison, still performs really great, still reminds me of billowing white curtains. I've always said that. Tender florals, soft, beautiful perfume that has not been butchered by the horrible laws that came into place years ago. And the last one is another crowd divider, and it's also by Cacharel. It is Lulu. I also own both of these. This is why they're on the list. The original one from the 80s is a monster. I mean, I cannot stress enough how strong it is. It's the only fragrance I'm actually afraid to wear. It's an incensey, smoky floral perfume that's very much significantly 80s smelling. And when I got the new one, there are a lot of elements that have been taken out, but does it retain its craziness? Yes. It's a lot drier, this one. Some of the florals are gone. They've ramped up the incense a bit more, and it's still recognizable as Lulu, which is a good reason to put it on a list of not being butchered. And yeah, that's basically the list. Lulu has not been reformulated to smithereens, shall we say. I think it's still absolutely fantastic, but it's a challenging fragrance whichever way you look at it and whichever formula you buy. So that's my list of 10 reformulations that do not suck. I hope you guys like this video. I'm Ouch Romano, trying to make the world smell better, one video at a time. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.